Good morning and welcome to Weekend Walkabout in our gardens and yours virtually.
Yeah, this is gardenatz.org. I'm Janet McComish.
I'm Stephen Nicola.
Our main topic today is the traveling gardener must-sees, the things that we've taken out of our library of pictures and said, yeah, gotta go there. But we're going to start with at the new year because we do have a couple things to tell you that we were doing today, our current topics. And if you've got any issues, go right ahead. Uh, Stephen and what was his last day? Not sure.
No,
His
I don't remember.
and the family get together. That was certainly a lot of fun. Sonia and Cam got there, oh, maybe a couple hours later. Said, "How come we weren't in the picture?" I said, it's really hard to get everybody together for a picture, even when they're in the same building."
Yeah,
Yes, that's what she said. How come I wasn't in the picture?
and Bray too,
Yeah,
complaining.
yeah. Our labs, they think they're lap dogs. You know about our website. I think you know about our website. We certainly know about our website. Got an email this week that somebody said they'd hacked our website. So go have at it. There's no activity on that website to hack now. And I want to write more this year coming up. So we've been working on what we're going to do next year for um, weekend walkabouts. And we have a list. We've contacted about 3 people so far. If I can line up speakers for each of the webinars that are not us, so we get to listen to somebody else, and we'll do that. Um, Pierre Betterup says yes. Scott Pittman says yes. Dave Mitchner will speak with us. I'm going after for our roots that someone said we have to repeat the roots and tell people about the roots. It's true, we do, but I don't want to do that the same way as before. We're going to see if we can get Mike Durr, one of the growers at Isley and one of the growers at North Branch Nursery, to talk with us. So if you know of anyone that you'd like us to go looking for, that you'd like to
Yeah,
hear from them about whatever
suggestions
topic
are
they come
welcome.
up with, suggestions are welcome now. It was December 18th. It was not this week, but I said, okay, that's it. I didn't get those two species tulips into the ground.
Yeah.
Let's go see if it's thawed. And so on December 18th, I got the tulips in the ground. A few of them had sprouted, but they weren't dried out all the way yet. So I anticipate that they'll come up. Some of them may not bloom, but I took pictures of where I put them. I put them in an easy place. They really were supposed to go in where the pearly everlasting is, but I looked out there December 18th. It was not warm.
And
It
it
was
would
not
have
frozen,
been,
but it was not warm, and I did not want to have to dig my way through the pearly everlasting and take out and replace, because when I plant bulbs underneath perennials, I take the perennials out, put the bulbs in, divide the perennials into pieces so that I'm renewing them and put them back in, and I just didn't want that extra stuff to
it,
do.
it would have taken quite a while.
Yeah. So why is there this empty place where bulbs could go? There's this empty place there because that's one of the places where I'm fighting the that terrestrial orchid called false helleborine. So I haven't planted anything there, and we'll see how well I can continue to weed it and grow bulbs. Questions about bulbs that people have still sitting? I know that you do. The author of the Light Eaters, right? Gretchen, that would be a good person to talk to. Aren't that, there are conifer collectors who grow a particular conifer just because it has beautiful
Yep,
cones, like
there
those
are some beautiful
like
cones
those
on
beautiful
yours.
purple cones on some of the
Firs.
firs. Yeah. And I don't know whether there's any suet out there or
There
not.
is.
Okay, good. We need to keep the suet up. The birds definitely need the
Yeah.
fat energy this time of year. Okay, there we had, now this won't seem at first to have anything to do with gardening and more to do with agriculture, but we had a flower disaster here. That same dog that you saw cuddled up on Sonia's lap greeted us at the door when we came home one day with all 4 of the lambs were here with a white nose. It's not shiny, a white nose. And can you see all of the little bits of white stuff on her legs? We looked and said, what's with this? And then
That one has white nose
Sonia came
too.
out and told me, oh my gosh, she said, after I made the bread, I put almost a full 5-pound bag of flour into my backpack, ready to go home. And Callie, we have one lab who is totally neurotic about food.
Mia's right up there.
Yeah, Mia's up. But somebody dragged that bag of flour out and had a lot of fun dragging the bag out and ripping it around. Sonia was mortified and she said, I'll help clean. I said, no, get on the road, I'll clean this up. And it is the cleanup that I want to tell you about. Because I learned a lot. This is something that I haven't told Sonia, because she felt bad about somebody else having to clean up all this flour that was crusted to the floor where labs had been licking it. I mean, it was crusted to the floor in many places.
It really was.
Yeah. And I said, no, I can figure that one out and can do it. But so I did clean everything up and it worked really well. I showed her a patch where
What just happened?
I showed her a patch where I applied the very hot water and the carpet cleaner that I use for dog problems. And in 3 minutes, I was able to get that patch cleaned up. So it didn't take very long. But what did take long was I noticed that the room was kind of dirty. And it's our guest bedroom, and I don't get in there and dust often enough. So I had dusted and done some other things. And then I started at the edge here with the shop vac to take up the loose flour. So I started here with the vacuum behind me, crawling forward and cleaning and cleaning and cleaning. And when I got to about here, I thought, man, I must have gotten flour on my glasses because everything seems dusty in here. But then I looked around and realized as I was doing this that the whole room was dusty because I'd failed to put the filter onto the shop vac.
And John Kutcher said even the filter might not have worked with flour. It might
so
have
such
still
fun.
went.
I'm used to using the shop vac as a wet vac, so I don't have a filter in it. So I had blown flour all over the room. And the flour had 1 5-pound bag of flour had coated every surface. Vertical surface, horizontal surface.
Little knickknacks on the headboard.
Everything was coated because, and I after I couldn't quite figure out why this had happened the way that it was, but oh well, things needed to be really well cleaned in here, so I'm going to well clean them. I talked then afterwards to my scientific advisor, who told me that 2 things had happened. And I had asked him about the flour sticking like it had to. I mean, it coated all the walls. I mean, all of the walls were coated right up to the ceiling. Also, when I went to clean up after I got done cleaning up with the shop vac and using the solvent to get the crusted flour out, then I went over it with our regular vacuum cleaner. And as I went over it with the regular vacuum cleaner, as I scraped the hose across the floor, static followed me to the point where I was getting shocked 10, 12 times on each pass. I said, okay, now this is really weird. Well, as it turns out, this is why silos sometimes explode, is because all of the tiny particles rubbing against each other, and flour is a very tiny particle, rubbing against each other create such huge static charges that all it takes is a little bit of heat or a flame or an explosion to blow things up. So we like to watch adventure movies, Steve and I especially spy chase scene movies. And there are times when usually it's the protagonist will set up something to blow up to take care of the guys that are chasing them. They'll do something in a microwave or whatever. And we saw one where he took flour and threw it on the floor because he knew that they were going to throw an explosive device in. And when they threw in the explosive device, the flour literally blew everything up. So this was something that was more dangerous than we thought. Not that we were going to throw anything in that was going to blow up, but you might want to have a greater respect for flour and some of the things in your kitchen.
Yeah.
It's very.
If we're doing, I'm just going to add as well, Jean says a great science lesson. We could also have some sort of biochemist talk about what it was that was producing the smells that came out of the dog that ate most of the flour in the car on the 4-hour drive home.
Well, I wasn't going to talk about that, but yes, there was.
We didn't notice much of that.
No, well, but there were texts flying back and forth about just how bad flour farts can smell. And actually which dog was farting the most would tell us which dog was eating the most stuff. Yeah. So anyway, that was an interesting day, and I can highly recommend what my sister turned me on to. It's called Jackson Galaxy, and I spelled it wrong, Sonia. It's not with an X, it's with a CKS. Jackson Galaxy. We picked it up first for things like the dogs that go outside, and these are labs. Black labs eat first and ask questions later. So they eat
Yeah.
things outside and then they bring them inside and throw them up on the rug. And they can make some terrible stains. Jackson Galaxy works very well as a carpet cleaner or a spot cleaner. And if you have a chance to pick some up, go ahead and do it. Okay. We had a fire disaster with a friend's kousa dogwood 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
because in 2023, we first went to look at the tree and went, oh man, what a mess. The neighbor's house burned. And that heat from that house burning,
You can
despite
see.
the fact, despite the fact that it's 20 to 60 feet away where the fire was burning, damaged the kousa dogwood. And this is a beautiful bushy kousa dogwood, about 25 years old. But you can see what it did. Just murdered that side of the tree. And you might tell yourself, well, it just killed the leaves.
No.
But it didn't. And when we got done cutting off the worst of the damage, and that's what I did, is I cut off the worst of the damage back to points where the plant could regrow. And I left, even though it's very dense now and unbalanced, I told Na, our friend, I said, we will thin that out and take care of that later when we see how the side of the tree that was damaged so badly responds. So we're going to give it a year. But lots and lots of dead before we took it out. Was Corey there?
No, that's the neighbor.
Okay. So when we got done, there were pieces in there, and you may be able to see a trunk coming around that trunk right there, Stephen.
This one.
Yeah, that we said, that we could just take that whole trunk out, and on the other side of the tree, we could take some trunks out, but we're gonna wait. We've taken enough off of this tree in the damaged part. And it did grow back quite vigorously, so vigorously that in its first winter back, it kept some of the leaves because that's all juvenile wood that didn't form flower buds and kept its juvenile leaves. So it was growing back vigorously with a lot of suckers. We cut it and the tree said, hey, I have a lot of energy, and it came back with a lot of suckers. Those have to be thinned out. I'm not too worried about thinning them out yet, though. We're still taking out the bad wood. You
Yeah,
can see the bad wood in there. Because they're the places that faced the fire, the cambium below the bark was damaged. The same way that, say, a Japanese maple facing toward the open sky, the west, especially the west and south in the winter, the bark underneath, the cambium underneath the bark can get damaged, and then the bark will die because it's not being replaced by the cambium underneath. And it will die, but if it's a vigorously growing tree like this one is, it will cut what's called wound wood. That lighter colored outside roll there is callus tissue, is undifferentiated tissue, wound wood that is growing fast and can cover over that damage. And if it's a vigorously growing tree and it's a smaller part of the diameter of the branch, you can say, all right, I'm going to let that cover over. But if a large part was damaged and is not showing really great vigorous coverage, those are branches that have to come off.
Because they're just going to cause problems.
Right, they're just going to be weak, and they will be forever a problem in the tree. So when we cut branches back, when we first cut it back, we tried to cut back to a place where a branch was about as big as 1/3 the diameter of what we cut. So that cut that you see right there is about 1.5 inches. We should have had a 1/2 inch branch to cut to, but we didn't have very large branches to cut to. So we cut to something as big as we could get and said, let's let them grow for a bit. And you can see if you look at the end of this branch that I've cut off, there's the damage that happened. And the tree has compartmentalized it,
That's why it's black. It's walled off.
It's walled off that section, said, okay, that's going to be my damage. And that'll
eventually if we left it on the tree, eventually it would, when it got about this big, it might be closed off.
And there'll be good white wood across the top of it. It will be a knot in the wood if it was ever used as wood. So the house has been fixed finally now, and the tree is now lost a whole lot on that side. You can see where it used to come out to.
Yeah.
But we went now and we assessed all of these, and we talked about the suckers, about that branch that's grown there. That's all brand new. Said, it's brand new. It's leaf. It's creating carbohydrates. Let's leave it there to to help fuel the growth, but let's take off some of the bad wood. And so we had to get into the middle of the tree to take off some of those branches that were badly damaged that we didn't get off before. And that took it even closer to the tree. But we left ones that were vigorously repairing themselves, took out things like this, too much damage. Left some that looked like this. And that meant taking off some big chunks. And like I said, we'll have to go back now. You can see all of those suckers that have formed. We don't want this to be a bush. It's a nice little tree. And it will take time to sort out which suckers we keep and which we don't. This is a nice, good sucker, but it's going straight up. So is that a good sucker? It's going straight up. Those would have to come off.